Brian wrote in and said, "Hey, Dave, in the latest episode, I think he's talking about 443, you mentioned that you will probably do harmonies in your new band, which is true. He says, my band does harmonies, but we really don't know how to do them properly. Do you have suggestions about rules of thumb for harmonies?" And I was super happy when Brian's question came in because I love talking about this stuff. You know, we all have our different approaches to this stuff. So who better to bounce this around with than someone who also plays and sings with lots of other people? So I have lots to say. What do you have to say? Let's start there, Dan.
Yeah, just an example. When you go through the process, what do you do to pick your parts? Let's start with the parts first, because we'll get into the actual structure later.
Yeah. So what I do when I'm approaching a song, and this I was learning how to sing in bands by simply going out and singing in the band that I was in because we needed more harmony vocals, right? And I could sing in tune mostly. So this is, 40 years ago, 35 years ago, something like that. I also at the same time was taking harmony and theory classes in college. And so sight singing labs, which are learning how to sing intervals. And now you could do it with an app on your phone. Like that was super helpful for me. And because these things were sort of in my head on a regular basis, like during the week, I was going to school and doing my, sight singing class and harmony and theory and all that stuff. And then on the weekends, I was going and playing in bands. And one night I remember it kind of all clicked for me. And it was like, okay, this is my process. And it's been my process ever since. The first thing that I do is I learn the lead vocal part of the song because I need to know what I am blending with. And this is just the way my brain works. From that point, I can, if it's a tricky song, I might need to sit down at the piano and like figure out what the chord is, or the chords are, like the chords that the harmonies make. But otherwise, if it's a fairly straightforward song with like, root in a third or root third fifth, or even a fifth below the root or whatever it is, which is, you do this enough, you start to hear the patterns. Once I can sing the lead, I know all of the other parts now. And so I will pick the part that somebody else, well, if I'm the only harmony singer, I will usually pick the third, the one note tight above the lead singer, because that sounds best. But if somebody else is going to grab that, I will grab something else. But there's a priority, right? If there's, 4 vocals on the record or whatever, and you've only got 2 singers, it's like, okay, well, which is the one that actually makes it sound like the 2 of you are singing in harmony, right? Don't pick the unison that's an octave below, or not a unison, but the octave below the root. Like, that's going to sound weird, unless you want it to sound weird, in which case
you sound like Squeeze.
Rock on. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. But that's how I pick my part. Does that answer your question?
So you pick your parts by methodically saying, here's the tonic, and then I'm going to begin at the third or at the fifth or whatever it is, right? Is that what you're saying? Essentially,
that's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
My approach is really bizarre because of 2 problems. One is with producer hat on. If I'm asked to do the arrangement, if I'm the vocal arranger, I have to hear it in my head first, and then I figure out what those parts are. And they're not 100% correct all the time. But if I hear the song played, just somebody sitting at the piano or sitting with acoustic or whatever, acoustic guitar or whatever, I can then hear the vocals in my head, and then I will map out what that is. Sometimes it's with suspended notes, sometimes it's with nines, whatever it is.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I've learned something from the live component, both singing and mixing, which is just because you can sing does not mean that the timbre and timbre of those singers work well together. So you can arrange it any way you want. And if the tonal properties of the people singing don't gel, they don't mesh well, then it won't sound pleasing to the ear. You won't enjoy it the way that you should. So it's not just of the sake of having the note for the sake of having the note. Coaching up a breathier background vocal, sometimes in mixing, you're going to boost your 12K to get a little air out of the BGVs so they wrap around your lead a little bit better. There are all kinds of tricks to make those tonal properties work. So the way that you address that, for me anyway, and again, I'd love to hear what people are doing on this, because it is such a finesse thing, is really start just the singers standing together with the piano or an acoustic guitar or whatever, and sing it and see what it sounds like. Because if you
In the
can't,
air, no
that's right,
microphones, no
nothing.
reverb. Right.
No,
Yep.
because if it doesn't sound good like that, you can begin to adapt and adjust. Sometimes you only need 2 vocals. Sometimes you need 4. Sometimes you need 3. But be based on what you're trying to get out of your background vocals. Like, you don't really want to auto-tune your lead vocal, you know? And so with that, your harmonies, your background vocals really need to be as flawless as you can get them, and they have to work on their own without the lead vocal. So how do you fix this problem? You literally do it. You warm up, you
Yep.
practice with the guitar or the piano or whatever it is. You super hydrate yourself well before you're ever going to sing, so that the moisture is already in your body. As they say in Florida, if you're thirsty, it's already too late. You're already dehydrated. And you make sure that it sounds good before that. And that's great, because then if you're recording or if you're live or whatever you're doing,
You know what you're
you
doing.
you know what you're doing, but you already hear what the finished vocal arrangement will sound like.